You are listening to the Delay and Pray podcast, episode number 83.
Welcome to the Delay and Pray podcast, where certified Catholic and weight loss coach Beth Bubick teaches you how to permanently lose weight through spiritual fasting. Get ready to gain faith and lose weight through a joyful transformation of both body and soul. Now, your host, Beth, the Catholic fasting coach.
Today, I have a beautiful and wonderful guest that is a well-known speaker, author, and radio host. Her name is Kendra Von Esh, and she has been featured on CBS, EWTN, Relevant Radio, and so much more. Her story is so inspiring, especially for those who are praying for their loved ones to come back to the Catholic Church. She will inspire you to not lose hope in the most dire of situations, because she's been through it all. We will be talking about her conversion into the church, how God healed her addiction, and how she is dealing with the sad recent loss of her husband. You will be amazed at her resilience and this lively, funny, and heartfelt testimony from Kendra. She's a former corporate executive who thought she had everything. Kendra tells us about how she bought into what this world said would make her happy: money, prestige, power, and how she fell into the culture of me until God finally found her and flipped her reality upside down and transformed her life. Her transformation was so miraculous, she left her executive career that she managed for decades for a speaking career all over the world to help others deepen their relationship with God and find true acceptance, love, peace, and joy. She is an engaging speaker who empowers and inspires her audience to find something more, which is what we named this podcast and what I want for all of you. Kendra's witness will fill you with hope as she shares the importance of humility and the miraculous mercy of God. I will let her inspire you as I have been inspired. Welcome, Kendra.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be here, Beth. That was very nice of you to read all that.
Oh, absolutely. Kendra, I am so excited to have you on the podcast today. So I was introduced to you by my wonderful friends and client, Betsy Bio and Joanne Bonzwell, and you were invited to speak at a retreat for their beautiful prayer house called Rosa Mystica. They love you so much that Betsy reached out and told me, you have to meet Kendra and have her as a guest on your podcast. And so I did. And she was so sweet. She introduced us on text in a group chat to make sure that we connected. So I know the Holy Spirit is going to take us where we need to go. So why don't we just begin with your conversion story and then the miracle of healing from your addiction?
Oh, sure. Okay. Where do I begin? I'll begin with my life without God. So praise God that my parents initiated me into the Catholic Church. I went to CCD. I was not a Catholic school person. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't learn anything about the faith. So let me just give you 3 things that prove that I had no idea what was going on in the Catholic Church or even in Christianity. Number 1, I did not know that Jesus was God. I just thought Jesus was God's son, and friend.
Okay, that right there, that's interesting that Jesus, was just God's son and friend.
Jesus is God? Yeah, and friend. I can't believe I said friend, but
That's okay.
Jesus is just God's son. I didn't know that he was God. Number 2, I had no idea why he died for us. Why is he crucified? What's he hanging up on that cross for? No clue. And last but not least, for a Catholic, I think this is the most important, Jesus is the Eucharist. I didn't even know that word, Eucharist. I did not know that he was in Holy Communion, body, blood, soul, and divinity. 0 clue. And my parents weren't practicing. I call us Creasters. We were Christmas, Easter goers. So that was it. We didn't go every Sunday. We never talked about God. We never talked about Jesus. And frankly, I lived the worldly life. And it all started, and I'm pretty sure that you know this commercial, but there may be some people out there that don't. When I was 10 years old, I saw a commercial called Angélie. It was a perfume commercial, right? I can bring up the bacon, fry it up in a pan. So that might trigger a few things for a couple people out there. And if you're not understanding what I'm talking about, just go out there. Even if you do know what I'm talking about, you know the commercial, go out there anyway, online, type in Anjali, Enjoli, 1980 commercial. And you will see this woman who is tall and slender and blonde, and she's in a business suit, and she's flipping dollar bills in her hand. She can bring home the bacon, fry it up in a pan. Later on, she's reading her children tickety talk, and she never lets her man forget he's a man. And I don't even know if he's her husband or not. But what I'm doing is watching this commercial, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my Lord, is that what I have to be when I grow up? Like, I am a chubby, mousy, brown-haired tomboy at this time in my life. And so I immediately start thinking, I have got to go on a diet. So I did. I started dieting. I was drinking Tab. Do you remember Tab?
Oh my gosh. In my webinars, I have a picture of Tab because that's where it started for me as well. In the 5th grade, I wanted that hot pink can of Tab because I had 4 older sisters. And I was like, I just want to taste it. It tasted terrible. But I thought, well, this is what I have to drink in order to look like them.
Exactly. And we had it in bottles. My dad, we had the bottles that you would return for money. So yes, I started drinking Tab. I can still taste the aftertaste. You said it was bad. It's super bad.
Super bad.
And at that time, the only workout video that was available was Jane Fonda's workout video.
Jane Fonda! With those French cut leotards.
Right. And those leg warmers. I mean, what in the world were they thinking back then? But I begged my mom for leg warmers. She wouldn't give them to me. And so that was the reason why I told her that I didn't continue working out. But I did. I started doing the VHS recording of it. And that was the beginning of me realizing how insecure I was with who I was. I did not have my identity as a child of God at this time. I was just trying to be what the world told me I should be. I mean, I couldn't even open up the JCPenney catalog that was like this thick that came in your mailbox without looking at all the girl models and thinking, oh my gosh, that is not me. I need to look like that. So I started becoming bulimic. I had a total disordered relationship with food. And then when I started getting into high school, I introduced myself to beer. And as I realized, wow, I can numb my insecurities by drinking. And then I became promiscuous and I lost my virginity at 16. And then I met my first husband senior year. And that was when I got introduced to marijuana. And there became my second huge addiction, was smoking pot. I was the person who woke up and smoked it. I took it to work in my car and I smoked it. I smoked on my way home. I smoked all night long. I mean, there was something about that numbness. And of course, I believed what the world told me was, hey, you need something to take the edge off. You're all stressed out. Smoke pot, drink, abuse food. I mean, I was totally addicted to carbs and sugar. And it's funny because God healed me, and we'll get into that a little bit, from my marijuana addiction, but never took away my drinking. And I think that, except for recently, and we'll get to that too after my husband passed, I never quit drinking unless it was Lent or something during Advent. And I would just come right back to it because I didn't think I had that much of a problem with it. But boy, oh boy, when you say you could enjoy 1 to 2 glasses of wine, I was enjoying 1 to 2 bottles of wine every single night.
So how long did you actually smoke the marijuana, even when you were a corporate executive?
Yep.
Wow.
You want to know how hard it was to go on LinkedIn and publish a video that basically shared that, hey, I was healed through my consecration to Jesus through Mary. Thank you, Mary, for taking me to Jesus to heal me on Our Lady of Guadalupe's feast day. And I didn't share it. It was back in 2013. I'll get to that. I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but
you're fine.
The hardest part was going on LinkedIn. That was the last step that I had to do to go out there and say, I'm leaving the corporate world. I'm going to go, work for God, basically, and be a Catholic speaker and evangelist. But let's not go there yet because I haven't even gotten out of the pits of hell.
So I want to know, okay, I don't smoke marijuana. So how do you keep that from the corporate world? Or does it go away in the morning? Is it just like drinking where tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I want to do it all the time because it changes my state of being.
Okay.
This is what I told myself. I can deal with people more. I have a much more patient self. That was such a lie. I mean, really. It chills me out. I didn't want to watch a movie. I didn't want to go to a party. I didn't want to watch TV and exist without having this high.
Wow. Okay.
And it does go away in the morning, but I didn't allow it to go away because I would just smoke it before I would even get in my car to go to the office.
How did people not smell it?
Exactly. I always carried a toothbrush and some toothpaste with me.
Oh.
And I always sprayed perfume on me. I'm sure some people smelled it, but you know what? Nobody came to me on LinkedIn and said, oh yeah, I knew you smoked all the time. Some people on my team knew I smoked, but nobody really knew. As a matter of fact, some of the comments that I got on LinkedIn were, I didn't realize that you were getting high all the time. And I'm like, that's because you didn't know me other than being high.
Okay. So were you more boisterous and more fun?
That's what I thought.
Oh.
That's exactly what I thought. Same thing with alcohol. Like I did not want to go to a party or be around any kind of gathering if I wasn't drinking. So, when Lent would come around, I would be like, oh, this is going to be brutal because that was associated with me.
Yeah.
I mean, I was a boisterous class clown back in school, and I started drinking when I was a junior in high school. And it just was part of who I was. And then as a senior in high school, I was smoking. I'm in college. I'm smoking all the time. My roommates don't, but I do. And it just made me feel more comfortable in my skin. I think it's that numb and dumb kind of thing,
It's a dopamine fix that you're getting.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. And the problem is you're right. So when you said you were insecure of who you were, when you finally find yourself, you don't need that, right?
You don't. Oh my gosh, you don't.
Yeah, your true self.
And the drinking thing, okay, let me go back. So I go into college. I don't want to study anything in particular. All I want to do is make money. So I just kind of slid through college and I come out on the other end and I'm like, okay, I've got to make money. So I was in sales. And for me, I didn't have the discipline to actually do the cold calls and to follow up and to open up those doors. So I kept asking people, I mean, Beth, I was so shameless. Let's say you and I met each other at a party and I'd be like, oh, hi, Beth, nice to meet you. So what do you do for a living? You'd tell me you're engineering. And then I would be like, oh, how much do you make? I was so shameless because all I wanted to do was make money. And so I eventually got into ADP, which is a payroll company. Mm-hmm. And then I got recruited out to a company and we rolled out SAP. It's a big ERP system. Yep. And that was how my life happened to me. And it was even worse because I wasn't the technical person. I can barely summarize a column in Excel, So here I am leading people. I always got promoted into jobs that I did not know how to do. When I became a VP of technology, I had to take on the infrastructure. I kind of knew the application side, but the infrastructure side, I mean, I was like a complete doofus when it came to that. But I had great people and I had the skill of leadership. I was mentoring my staff. They would work their tails off for me. And we always had fun. I mean, I was the boss that said, hey, we need to go off site and have an off-site meeting at a bar and drink, But I never looked at myself as capable as a manager and as a leader. And my goal by 40 was to be a chief information officer. And on my 10 days before my 40th birthday, I got promoted to chief information officer. And then it got worse. Like you would think, oh, that's what the world says will make me happy. Get to that top of the food chain, if you will, sit at mahogany row. And then it got even scarier because the average lifespan of a CIO is 3 years.
Wow.
So here I'm thinking, oh boy, I got to keep this job. We just bought a lake house and we just bought a couple of boats and a couple of wave runners. And I'm the breadwinner in the house and I'm freaking out, So for me, I started drinking more. I started smoking more, if it's even possible.
Okay, so how did you sleep? How did you sleep and how did you get up?
Oh, so getting up was very difficult. And there were some times when I would just phone it in, where I'd be like, oh, I'm going to work from home today, which wasn't even a thing. COVID hadn't happened yet, So I did everything that I could do to slack, just like I did in college. I'm going to put the minimal effort into my job so that I can get through this. I mean, there were some times when you say, how do you sleep? Well, if you drink a lot and you smoke a lot, you get pretty tired. And I don't even know if I got good sleep. I think I just kind of passed out.
Yeah.
And then we got into, so I'm in this job for about 3 years. And then we're going to merge 3 companies together. And there's only going to be one CIO. And the other 2 guys had 10 years more experience than me, and they actually knew the technology. So I'm drinking myself into oblivion. I'm waking up in the middle of the night and I'm taking shots of NyQuil just to go back to sleep. This is how sad my life was and how freaked out I was, how fearful I was. And oh my gosh, I can remember those days. And my neck was so sore. I think my teeth were just being grinding all night. I could barely even move my neck. It was insane during that time. So that was around 42 years old. And this was when my life changed. So I got a phone call from my dad's girlfriend, and she said, hey, your dad's going in for quadruple bypass surgery tomorrow. And I'm like, what? Like, my father's 70 years old. He's on ice skates. He's coaching hockey. There's not an ounce of fat on him. Like, there's no symptoms for this guy. And so I freaked out. I really didn't have a whole lot of death or illness in my family. And then this happens. And I'm thinking, whoa, tomorrow his chest is going to be cracked open. This is so scary. But for the first time, I got on my knees, I bawled my eyes out, and I cried for God to save my dad. I mean, when you say for the first time you prayed, no, I used to pray, quotes, air quotes for the people who aren't seeing us on video. I used to pray the one-way asking train to God, like, Lord, will you have this boy like me?
Lord, give me the promotion.
Oh my gosh, give me the promotion. Oh, Lord, help me pass this test in college because I was out drinking all night. Lord, help me get this job. Lord, help me keep this job. Back then when they were hiring people, you had to have a drug test. I mean, I used my mom's urine to get into companies because I wouldn't even stop, right? This is how much of a hold and a grip my addictions had on me. So back to my dad, I pray for him.
So this was the first time that you prayed for something outside yourself, someone.
Bingo. Selfless. Yeah. For someone else. It had nothing to do with me other than the fact that, of course, I didn't want to lose my dad. But it was all about him coming out and being able to be the same guy. So sure enough, Jesus answered that in spades. I mean, it was almost like a miraculous healing. He was back on skates within like 3-4 weeks. And I never went to Jesus. I was one of those lepers that walked away and never thanked him because I made it about me. Me, myself, and I was my Holy Trinity. So it just so happened that I was watching Dr. Oz at the time, and I saw this woman. She had a book, and it was a cleanse book for your hormones. And so I bought it because I was thinking, my husband and I, packing on an extra 20, 30 pounds, we could be having that surgery. Like, my dad had no symptoms. So I bought the book. Somehow I convinced my husband to do it with me. But inside the book, there was a pie chart with little segments of your life. One of those pieces of the pie said spirituality. And I was like, I got nothing going on in this piece of the pie. And actually, I interpreted spirituality to be religion. Because, Beth, I had no clue about spirituality. I had no idea about religion. I had no idea why people were Jewish, what the Buddhism, Hinduism, this New Age stuff, what's this universe, chakra, any of this stuff, because I didn't care. I don't need God. What do I need God for? I've got my life pretty much the way that the world says my life should be, and life is good. Or so I thought. I really thought I was happy. So I'm looking at this pie chart and I see spirituality as one of the pieces. And I'm like, you know what? I'm cleansing my body. I might as well cleanse my soul.
Oh, right there. There's the connection.
Right? what? And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to church, but I'm not going to that Catholic church because Mass is so boring. And keep in mind, Beth, I have no idea the difference between all of the Christian denominations and Catholicism. I have no idea. The only thing I do know is the place that I'm going to go has police officers directing traffic after church. So it must be good. There's all these people in there. It must be fun. So that's what I decide to do. And everyone's over at my house on Easter Saturday. My husband and I know it's Holy Saturday now. It's not Easter Saturday, but that's what we called it because I hosted it because our families had so many divorces. When the kids were younger, everyone wanted to be at their own home on Sunday for Easter to do the Easter baskets, to do the egg hunt, never mentioning Jesus ever on Easter. And so everyone's over at my house on Saturday night. And my husband and I are going to do the cleanse on Easter Sunday, the biggest feast day in the church. And my husband and I are going to eat like nothing, right? I'm sure you've done it. You've done a cleanse, right?
I have never really done a cleanse.
Oh my gosh. I cannot believe.
But on Easter Sunday, that's really funny. I mean, the highest feast day of the entire church year.
Exactly.
You're going to fast.
Yes.
You're going to do a Good Friday.
Exactly. Exactly.
Isn't it amazing how God loves us exactly where we are? God's just waiting for you. Kendra, I see you, but I know exactly what's going to happen to you. So
oh my gosh, I had no idea. No idea. Yes. So here's the deal. On Saturday night, typical for me, every time I start my diet, I eat the house down the day before, right? Oh, can't have ice cream in the house. Can't have cookies in the house. Can't have, anything in the house that's going to get me off of my diet because I'm this all or nothing person. Like for Lent, I would practice Lent, even though I wasn't practicing Catholic. I'd give up chocolate or sweets. And then the minute I would screw it up, I would be like, oh, looks like Lent is over. It looks like I failed this year. And I just go right back, So I'm an all or nothing person. So my husband and I am eating the house down. I'm pretty sure I ate almost a whole cake that night. I guarantee I drank 2, if not 3 bottles of wine.
Oh,
yes. I mean, my stomach was so bloated. I looked like I was 6 months pregnant. It was pretty sad. And then it's 11:30. I'm still up. Now I'm the only one that knows I'm going to church tomorrow until I open my big fat mouth. And then I tell everyone, hey, I got to go to bed because I'm going to church tomorrow. Half of my family, all of them fallen away Catholics, say, what? And the other half say, why? My husband's looking at me like, you don't expect me to go do this with you, do you? And I was like, no. And so my mom's boyfriend, who again, fallen away Catholic, was an altar boy, went to Catholic school, looks at me and says, so where are you going to church? And I mentioned this big box church down the street. And he gets all in my kitchen and he says, but you're Catholic. Why aren't you going to the Catholic church? And then I'm like, I don't know. I mean, Mass is so boring and I feel like a hypocrite. I don't want to change my life. Then my mom gets on me. Then my dad gets on me. My parents were divorced at the time and they were still cordial and we all came together on Easter.
So what's funny is they want you to go to the Catholic church, but they don't go to church.
Beth, you know how much it was for me to bite my tongue to say, hello, none of you guys are doing any of this. What are you getting in my kitchen for? But I know it was God. I know it was
God. God works in mysterious ways. He does.
Came right through them. Talk to me. And I said, fine. I grabbed my phone and I'm like, look it up for the closest Catholic church. And I'm like, whoa, Mass is at 7:30. I got to get to bed. So I go upstairs. I go to bed. My alarm goes off and I'm like, whose stupid idea was this? Like, I'm so bloated. I'm hungover. I'm like, this is going to be brutal. And now I have to go because I told everybody that I was going to go. I'm like, this is brutal. So I get up, I put something church worthy on to wear. And as I'm driving to this church that I've never been to before, I am starting to freak out. I'm scared because I've never been to Mass by myself. Ever. I've always been with my first husband's family because they practiced. They went to Mass every Sunday. And then my family, when we would go, we would just be there. My dad would be like falling asleep, sitting next to me in the pew, and we would be walking out with Jesus in our mouth so that we could beat the traffic. It's kind of the deal. So I'm a little nervous. I walk into this church and there's this little lady in front of me and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to follow her. Now it's Easter Sunday and I know to bless myself with the holy water. And then we walk into the church and I see the back pew is open, except there's another guy on the other side. And I'm like, oh, I'm so going in the back pew because I don't want anyone to look at me standing and kneeling at the wrong time, because all of these people in this church are holy. That's what I thought. Everyone knows what they're doing. I'm the only idiot that doesn't. So I'm just going to sit in the back pew. And I follow this little lady and I'm like, don't sit in the back pew. Don't sit in the back pew. So she goes into the pew right in front of the back pew. Now she genuflects, which I have no idea what that word is. And I have no idea why she's doing that, but I do it too. Then she kneels and I'm kneeling behind her and I don't pray. I just look at the back of her head and I'm like, I wonder what she's thinking up there. She sits back, I sit back. And then the priest comes up from the side where I'm sitting in the back and he's saying, Happy Easter, Happy Easter. And then he comes right behind me and the other guy in the back pew and he says, hello, people in the back row. And I'm like, a priest with a sense of humor. Who knew? Like, I've never met a priest before. I don't even know what to expect. And he's making a joke, which I thought was great. So I felt a little more calm until he walks up, turns around and starts the mass and says, peace be with you. And I'm like, oh, I know this one. And I say it super loud. And also with you.
Oops.
Nobody's saying it. I'm like, oh, I'm thinking this lady in front of me is going, oh, this girl hasn't been here in a long.
She's a creaster. Excuse me, everyone. We have a creaster in the back row. Everyone, hello.
Maybe not even. So, okay, you got to get it. I forgot to tell you. When I got married, it was 20 years and I wasn't even going to Christmas or Easter Mass.
Okay.
So I wasn't even a creaster. So that's the kicker for me.
Yeah.
But just so everyone knows, in case anyone's watching this and is going to maybe go to Mass, know that it's not and also with you when the priest says that. They changed it in 2011 to and with your spirit. And I went in 2013 on Easter. So I'm mortified because nobody's saying what I'm saying. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to watch this little lady like I so far have been. And the Mass continues. And of course, I go up and receive Jesus because I don't know that I'm supposed to receive him in a state of grace. I have many mortal sins on my soul, so many. And some mortal sins that I didn't even know were mortal sins at the time, like birth control, for example. So I receive and then I'm usually gone. So the priest says, everyone sit down for announcements. And I'm like, come on, man, is this ever going to get over? And so he says, next Sunday, Divine Mercy Sunday, we're going to have confession after 2:00 Spanish Mass. I was like, wow, confession. Like, how long has it been? I ran out of fingers and I started carrying the one in my mind. Math is not my strong suit. And I'm like, whoa, 26 years? Wow. So at that point, I thought, if I believe a half of a mustard seed of this Catholic faith, like I'm so going to hell. I knew that I was going to hell. But at that point, I did not decide to go to confession. I left feeling lighter, a couple of embarrassing moments, but in the end, I'm going to come back. So I came back the next Sunday at 7:30. And then it was so nice. You live in Michigan. I'm in the Chicago area. When it's nice in the spring, you take full advantage of it. So my husband and I decided we're going to go golf. And remember, my neck was killing me. My companies are merging and I'm not sleeping. And so by the third hole, I was like, honey, I have got to go put my neck down. Like leaning over to swing a club just was not working for me. So I go home, I lay down on my bed with my 2 dogs, and I'm looking up at the ceiling fan. And I hear in the loudest voice in my head, it didn't come from the outside, confession at 2:00 after Spanish Mass. And I hear this, like, what in the world is that? And why in the world am I hearing that? It was God talking in my brain. And I roll my head because, I'm like, I look over at the clock and I'm like, oh, it's 1:00. I can make it. So I don't know about the examination of conscience. Last time I went to confession was, confirmation. And so I'm writing down my sins on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper.
Mm-hmm.
And then I flip it over and I fill out the whole backside. And I don't have very big penmanship, mind you. It was a general confession. So anyone, if you want to get every sin off of your soul, A, do not go on Divine Mercy Sunday to confession, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But B, call your priest. You can still be anonymous. You can make an appointment, meet him in the confessional, and take as much time as you want. But I didn't know this. So I go to the church, and I am the first one in line because I get there about 1:30, and I don't even know where to go. I'm like, okay, I'm here. Where do I go? I don't see any of these confessional brown boxes that I see on the movies. And the last time that I went to confession, I was in a cafeteria, like a cattle call, because it was all the confession or the confirmation kids, you know, so we would just sit there and there would be a screen. We'd be in cafeteria chairs. So I'm freaking out because I know what's on my list in my purse, dug way down deep. Fast forward because the chapter in my book called Divine Blubbering Sunday gets into all of it. I mean, it's funny, it's embarrassing, it's, you know, a tearjerker. So I walk into the confessional. I'm sweating. My heart, I can feel it beating out of my chest. I am visibly nervous. I'm scared because that priest, after he hears everything on this sheet of paper, is going to give me a butt whooping. I have no idea what my penance is going to be. God is never going to forgive me. That was going through my mind, my body, and everything. And you got to know that I deflect a lot with humor. So this is what I do. I walk in, I kneel down, and I say, just like this. And the only reason why I know what to say is because of the movies. Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. Get a load of this. It's been 26 years since my last confession. Giggling, I can guarantee you he heard the shaking of my throat, the fear. I mean, I'm pitting out. I'm that sweaty. And he says in the most beautiful voice, welcome home. And I just started crying. I mean, tears. It was like God turned on the faucet. I do have the Holy Spirit gift of tears, which sometimes I think is a curse. And they just kept falling. You can hear them hit my paper. I knew at that moment that God existed. And I knew at that moment that he loved me no matter what. I mean, the tears that were coming down were like so awesome. My whole body felt so calm, so peaceful. I knew that God existed. I knew that he loved me. And it took me, I don't know how long to go through that piece of paper. I mean, I was in there, what seemingly was like 20, 30 minutes. And then he gets to the absolution of my sins. And that was when I had this waterfall of peace just fall over me. I felt so light. I was like floating in my own body. And then I left. And again, I was in there forever. There wasn't one Kleenex in that place. So I had like my makeup everywhere. I was wearing a golf pullover. I had streams of mascara down the sides. And then I get out of there and I am seeing there is a line of people all the way down the church, out the narthex and outside the door. It's Divine Mercy Sunday. I have no idea that this is a day that you get everything wiped from your soul. Temporal punishment, everything.
But listen, all those people in line knew exactly what was happening and they were praying and rejoicing for you. Because any Catholic that normally, except for you, that goes to Divine Mercy Sunday, Mass plus confession afterwards, knows the ropes and they'll wait forever for this confession to have the slate wiped clean. Yeah. Absolutely. So beautiful. Oh, so beautiful.
And then I get in my car and I turn around at the doors and I'm looking at the people and I'm like, what was that? And I knew that was God. And darn it, he's in this Catholic church.
Is this 10 years ago?
This is 11 years ago. Yeah.
11 years ago.
11 years ago.
Wow.
This Easter. Yes.
Wow.
And so I'm like, darn it, it's in the Catholic church, but the Holy Spirit filled me with this unquenchable thirst that still isn't gone because I still learn so much about the faith, so much about how to fight the spiritual battle, so much about prayer. And I couldn't stop looking up, what is this Catholic faith all about? And then that next day, my countenance changed. And I just want to repeat this out loud for people. When you go to confession and you confess mortal sins, those little hooks of the evil spirits that are on you, weighing you down, they have to go. Confession is better than an exorcism.
Yes, it is.
It's a sacrament. An exorcism is a sacramental. So please, if anyone is watching this and nervous and scared, just like I was, know that everything will be different when you walk out of there, that you will be free. I mean, honestly, Beth, I felt like I floated out of that.
You know what's interesting, Kendra, is, okay, so if you join the Delay and Pray group coaching experience and you go through the whole course and get coached, the baseline minimum for sacraments to do the course is 1 daily mass a week, 1 hour of adoration a week, and monthly confession. And then you add, every year you add a daily mass until after 5 years, you have daily mass, and then add an extra hour or two of adoration, and then go to weekly confession. You don't have to take the 5 years, but I think one of the reasons why we all fail as Catholics is sometimes we just go, okay, 5 daily masses, weekly confession, all this adoration. Then people are like, I can't do it. Okay. So anyway, so I did it slowly, adding every year. It worked out beautifully. But when I got to weekly confession, that's when I found those hooks from overeating and overdrinking. That's where they were destroyed. And even today, I can tell you, if I don't go every week or 2 weeks, I want to overeat and I want to overdrink.
Yep.
It just comes right on. And I'm like, oh, there's the hooks.
Exactly.
I didn't think about it as hooks. I was just thinking it's the sin within me. And it's just my particular sin of gluttony and sloth. That's my particular attachment. I don't have attachment to marijuana. I don't have attachment to pornography or, whatever it is. But it's like, oh, so I have to keep on those sins. I got to keep on this gluttony, because if I don't, I just like invite him right back in. It's just it's the most interesting things, isn't it?
Oh my gosh. I have to share. So number one, I saw my first pornography film at 11. I forgot about this whole part of my life and I got addicted to it. And I was watching porn
Really?
yes, forever and ever and ever, until I'd learned, as I kept learning about the teachings, that masturbation and pornography is a mortal sin. And I was like, what? I'm in my own bedroom doing my own thing. I'm not hurting anybody. I'm not out there, committing adultery with another physical person. Understood that the body and marriage and what sex is to be used for procreation and intimacy. And so I confessed to my husband. I said, hey, I've been watching porn. And he's like, what? Like, did not know, had no clue. And then he said to me, is that why we're not having sex? And I'm like, probably.
Wow. Oh, you have one of your topics on your speaking engagements. You have no sex, ? No kidding, !
Yep. Yeah.
So this is, oh my goodness. Yes.
And I was promiscuous. I slept around. I cheated. I had an affair with a bunch of cheating experiences with my first husband, who we were married in the Catholic Church. I mean, I definitely lived the I'm going to do what I want to do whenever I want to do it lifestyle without any ramifications or thought of my soul.
So Kendra, this is so interesting because, I grew up in this very devout Catholic family. And I had some gaps in my college life, but when I think of the gaps for me were like missing Sunday Mass. Yeah, I always knew like pornography was awful. Yeah, pornography was like the worst mortal sin. Getting super drunk is worse. Masturbation is definitely a mortal sin. I mean, that was drilled into me as a young child. Like I have priests in my family, nuns. It was openly talked about. Now, it was openly talked about and it was openly challenged by a lot of the adults. They're like, again, like Catholic Church can't tell me to do that. I'm in my own bedroom. I'm not hurting anyone. So I would be a kid and I'd be just listening to all of this. I'd just be listening to like, whoa. So trying to find my way. But I full well knew what the Catholic Church taught. So I got to decide. And that it's so much easier when you know.
Yeah.
Because sure, you can decide I'm not following that. Because I went on birth control when I was first married. I went.
Yeah.
And before we were married. And I went. I was like, well, it's true. The Catholic Church can't tell me. But I full well knew. And so whenever I was actually partaking in it, I was like, I would always bring it up in confession. And I would be like, I know this is wrong. And so there was always this push or pull about it, which weighed on me. So therefore I got off of it quickly because it was like, okay, this isn't this. Plus I didn't feel well. Well, this is not good for my body. This isn't good for my soul. So just for everyone out there, it is so interesting. Teach your children, whether they can script to it or not, whether they're going to follow it or not. Teach them, let them know, because they'll know. And then they can go forward and they can be like, I know this isn't right.
Yep. Me too with the birth control. I was changing all these things in my life. And now I'm like, are you kidding me? Now I got to tell my husband that I've got to get off of birth control, So it was a couple of months, probably, 3-4 months where I knew that this was a mortal sin. I was still taking the pill every day, just like you. It was like, when I would put it in my mouth and swallow it. Sometimes I would go to confession before Mass and make sure that I was clean with it. But I don't think it really counts when you know you're going to take the pill the next day.
Right.
Like there's something about you have to be intentional and repent. I felt bad, but I wasn't changing my behavior. So ultimately I did ask my husband and I said, look, I've been on this thing for 20 years. I'm getting off. There's carcinogens in here and I don't know what you want to do. And so we didn't do the right thing. He went and got a vasectomy. That's still mutilating.
So you and your husband never had children?
No.
Okay.
He had 2 children from a previous marriage.
Okay.
So they're my stepkids. And unfortunately, their mom passed away 6 years ago. And then dad just passed away. So I'm the only one left that they've got, as far as a parent.
Thank God.
Yeah, something. Something's better than nothing.
Yeah, you bet.
So yeah, that whole birth control thing, it's a hard discussion to have. But in the end, it was also a medical thing with me too.
It sure is.
My body has been ingesting this stuff for 20 years.
Yes.
And honey, if you don't trust that God is going to protect us from having kids, then go get a vasectomy. And that's what we did, which isn't. And then he went to confession for that. Thank goodness. Because again, it's not something that we should do. We're not supposed to take away the gift of life. We let that be God's decision through our own,
right. Well, and you know what? There's a lot of compassion and mercy here, Kendra, because as you say, you didn't know. And I grew up knowing. And so what's so interesting is I made my girls take natural family planning when they were 16, just so they would know what this was about. And they hated it at the time. And they would go to their Catholic school and no one else was doing this. So they would be like, Mom, this is so embarrassing. I would drop them off at the practitioner. But do you know they practice that to this now? They're so thankful.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm. They're married. Well, one's married. And it's just something that is beautiful. So for the parents out there, I'm hoping that, just teach your kids. They're going to fight you on this because the culture is very wicked. The culture is very strong when it comes to the ways of the world. But I'm telling you, if you can somehow just get your daughters and your granddaughters to understand natural family planning, even the boys are a little harder. And anyway, the woman's going to lead on that. Very interesting. And we are getting greener in the world. And so women are coming off the pill for health reasons. But, what's good for the body is good for the soul. What's good for the soul is good for the body. So this natural family planning and then having more children and just being open to life, I think is catching on. And maybe that'll be the impetus to actually come back to the Catholic Church.
I pray. And parents, don't worry about your kids getting mad at you. Do the right thing.
No.
You got
my kids were always mad at me. They were always mad at me and I didn't care. I was like, I don't care. I don't care. It's my soul. I said, I always just tell him, listen, I know where I'm going. I'm trying to get to heaven and I can't get to heaven without telling you these things and about instructing you, because that's what it says. Instruct your children. So here I am. I'm trying to get to heaven. Everything else is on you. I would just tell them that, of course I love them so much. Right. And I wanted them to have a good start in life. And but I was the beneficiary of a mother and dad who loved each other very much, who had 8 children. They had their struggles, but devout Catholics, wonderful family. And I was trying my best to carry that on.
Right.
And hopefully it'll keep passing on. But it's so interesting though, to see that we do have to evangelize and find all the Kendras and show them the way and teach them. Right?
Yes. And just know that you live for an audience of one. Jesus Christ, and you are going to be judged by Jesus. And so for me, it was one of those things where I prayed for detachment because my whole life I was disordered. It's called the sin of vanity. I thought way too much about what people thought of me.
Mm-hmm.
And it really drove a lot of my behavior and a lot of my decisions. So if we just realize that Jesus is going to look at us one day and say, oh, so you didn't share the faith because you were worried about what Bob was going to think about you? Like, what about me? And so that finally came where I was able to just share and have those discussions with especially people that weren't on the same page, that didn't have the same beliefs. And the more you speak about your faith with love. So my stepson, they were raised Lutheran and my husband wasn't practicing. So I would be the one going to church. They moved in with us after their mom passed. They moved in with us for a couple of years. And then one moved out and the other one was still here and he was having his girlfriend sleep over. And in my mind, I was like, I can't do this. Like I told my husband, I said, I don't think I can do this anymore. And he's like, I agree. And he's like, do you want me to say something? And I said, I think I got to say something. I've got to own this because this is my faith, even though my husband agreed and was ready to take it off my shoulders. So when he came home one day, I said, listen, I just have to have a quick conversation with you, which may come out of left field, but I just want you to know that the reason I'm bringing this up is because I love you so much. Like, I really care where your soul is going to go. And he kind of knew what was coming. And I said, I have a problem because I don't believe in sex before marriage and you guys sleeping together. And I don't know what's actually happening under this roof. And honestly, I've got to look at Jesus and say that I taught you guys as much as I possibly could. And he didn't say, I hate you. He didn't run out of the house. He said, I expected this. I'm like, oh, well, isn't that interesting? He's like, yeah, I really did expect this because you just keep growing in your faith. And that is huge to have him realize that I keep growing in my faith. And eventually this is probably going to come up. By the way, they're getting married Monday, the 17th. They decided that they were going to go to South Carolina. They aren't having a big wedding, but they are going to get it blessed in the Catholic Church. His girlfriend's parents are traditional Latin mass goers. I mean, they are true practicing Catholics. So I couldn't be more blessed. Same with my other son. His girlfriend's Catholic. Her family practices. I mean, she was considering being a nun at one point in time. So
that's wonderful.
Yeah, we'll see where God takes them. But
wow. Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, it is amazing.
Good for you, Kendra. My gosh.
Well, it's all God.
So then you left your corporate life and you started to be, was it like a speaker first or did you do the book first or what happened there?
Yeah, so I wrote the book in 5 days. I mean, I'm a procrastinator. This was ridiculous. I just wrote it, like went to mass in the morning and then wrote it through the afternoon. Whenever my husband got home, I'd stop. And then I gave it to, are you familiar with Relevant Radio?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Okay. So Father Rocky, he was speaking at a breakfast that I was going to, and I just handed him my manuscript. He handed it to Linda Ruff, who handed it to Carol Tomaselli. And then they invited me into the studio and I shared my story. And she's like, well, looks like you're going to be the speaker for our luncheon in Chicago, basically sharing how Relevant Radio changed my life and my conversion story, which was great. And then, so that's basically what happened. Then I got the book published. I did it myself. I didn't go through a publisher and I didn't know anyone. Like when I built my network of people in my career, I mean, I could call anybody for anything. And here I don't even know my pastor at my own church. I didn't know that there was a youth minister, a religious education person, that there was maybe adult formation. I didn't know all of these things. So when I made the decision, or I asked my husband, would you mind? I was in between jobs. And he said, sure, we'll take it day by day. And I approached my ministry as a job. I put a project plan together. Check this out. My first week after my husband says, yes, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I am not going to mass. because I have stuff to do. I have money to make. I've got to make what I've made, because how are we going to survive without my salary, which was pretty good, like, and my husband comes home on Friday night and he looks at me and he goes, "Can I ask you a question?" Of course. "Are you praying or going to mass anymore?" And I'm like, busted, I'm like, "Well, why do you ask?" He's like, "Because you're like losing your mind." He's like, "You're freaking out. You're anxious." And I'm like, truth be told, no, I'm not going to mass. And no, I'm not getting up and praying. I've got too much to do. And he goes back and he says, "You need to go back to mass and you need to pray, because you're a better person when you do that." And I'm like, what? And of course, you don't work for God, you work with God. A big difference in those two words,
Yes. I love that. So then you started the speaking business, right? Because it was speaking for the most
Mhm.
part. So now you are a speaker, you're an author. What else do you do?
So I have a video prayer course to help people, because that was one of my struggles. Like, how do I pray? I would look and envy people that I would see after mass sitting in adoration, just being totally reflective. And so I learned how to pray. I had a spiritual director. So I put everything that I learned into a video program where an email comes to your inbox. There's a 3-minute video and we work on something every day. And then it kind of builds on top of itself. And then there's other people out in this prayer community. So someone can make a comment. Maybe someone shares a resource that's outside of my prayer thing. So you're in there with a whole bunch of different people
Yeah.
and courses that help you along. Then I did rosary reflections. Who doesn't get distracted praying the rosary? I mean, everyone does. So it's just a USB, USB kind of thing that you can plug into your car, plug into your phone, take it wherever you want. It's got a little keychain thingy, and it's all of the mysteries. And it's such a way that you will get shocked out of your Hail Marys. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Well, I change it up every now and then. And then after every Hail Mary, there's a reflection. So you're not just repetitive in the way that you pray. And some of us just go off
Oh, beautiful.
and, have different thoughts.
So this is all I see on your website. I saw that in your store. I wondered what that was, because you have a store.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. And you have a podcast, right?
I have a podcast. I have a YouTube channel. I've got a membership group where we get into too much information, something. Not everything's for the public YouTube channel. So I've got some people that are memberships on the YouTube channel. And then this is the biggest thing. So my husband and I, we bought 40 acres in Tennessee. My husband retired 2 years before he passed. And we had a house and a big shop, like a big garage. And we were about ready to go down there and finish it, like lay the floors, put the kitchen cabinets in, do the bathrooms. And then he passed away. And I'm like, what am I going to do now? And so through prayer, through lots of prayer, I'm going to build a retreat home down there on this beautiful land that is going to be for 12 women. So you can take a weekend away and you can come and you can reflect. So it's soul, mind, and body. Everything comes with the soul first. That's how I changed my whole relationship with food and my relationship with exercise. God also helped me kick away my marijuana addiction, took away my drinking, so many things. It's all God. And I just want people to come for a weekend and be healed. There will be adoration and priests and mass and confession, but it's for all Christians, not just Catholics, but they will learn a little something. And then I may have other speakers that come on occasion. Like I'm talking with Sonia Corbett. Do you know who she is?
Oh, yeah.
So she lives down in Tennessee. She's a healer. She is a healer. She's got beautiful gifts. So I'm like, do you want to come and have some sessions with some people? And I will put one-on-one coaching. That's another thing that I do. I call it faith coaching, but it's any coaching that you need to deal with your addictions, to deal with lack of forgiveness, to understand how to pray, to fight the spiritual battle. So many don't realize when true attacks come your way. And so hoping that it'll be ready by next year. And that for me would be like,
I love it.
I could rent it out if you want to have your people there and you want to
yeah.
come use this place. So upstairs would be the loft. Yeah. I mean, it's just.
Oh, so fun. You're not that far from me. No, I think that's a beautiful idea. And I will definitely consider that. That would just be phenomenal. That's always something that I have planned on is, doing live events. So I'm very close to that, probably in 2025 for me.
Which might be when the place is open.
Yeah, because we're on Zoom all the time as a community, but I got a lot of local people and people that are 5-6 hours away that they could actually drive. So
yeah,
that'd be wonderful. I mean, I have people in the world as well. So Belgium and Nigeria and Australia.
Nice.
Anyway, but the local people ish could definitely come and have an event. So I think it's a wonderful business adventure and a really great thing for Catholics and Christians.
Amen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amen. Amen.
So your husband was on board with all this. Did he come back to the Catholic faith or was he Lutheran? I can't remember which.
So his kids are Lutheran. His wife was Lutheran, his first wife. He only had one other than me.
But he was a baptized Catholic, right?
Yes. Yes. Baptized Catholic.
Yes, because you got married in the Catholic Church.
Exactly. We got married 3 times, actually.
Did he come to conversion before his death?
No, he did not.
Okay.
So,
That's okay.
So we came home from Tennessee that morning, and I got to share just one little story, and then also a couple of other things. So we came home from Tennessee that morning, drove 7 hours home.
This is just January of this year.
January
2024.
Yeah, January 27th, 4 months ago, going on 5. And as we're driving, one of my things is 11:11. I always see it on the clock. I make mention of it all the time. So much so that my husband doesn't even acknowledge it anymore. Like 11:11. He's just like, whatever. So we're in the car. My phone wasn't working. The texts weren't working for some weird reason. So he sends me a test text. And I'm like, still don't have it. I reboot my phone. Finally, I get his text. And I'm like, okay. And that's an important tidbit. You're like, why are you telling me this? It'll come into play a little bit.
So you're both in the car.
We're both in the car. Then we're driving and I look at the clock and I'm like, 11:11. Beth, I'm telling you, the reaction that he did after I said 11:11 was so weird. He went like, ha ha, like it was a loud, awkward, weird kind of laugh. I noted it. I didn't say anything like, what the heck kind of response was that? I left it alone, but I was like, that was so weird. So we get home, unpack the car, and I'm like, he's not feeling bad at all. Not at all. He's like, I'm going to watch some golf. I'm like, I'm going to take a nap. So I set my alarm for 4:00 because we got home about, by the time I slept, it was like 3. Bottom line, I get up before my alarm goes off. I come downstairs. He's in the kitchen getting a glass of water. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to go do the laundry. I go all the way down the stairs and I hear this boom, boom. And I'm like, well, that didn't sound good. Thank God I ran up the stairs. I come upstairs right here in this kitchen. He's on the floor on his back. And I'm like, I thought he fainted. And I'm like slapping his face. And I'm like, honey, honey. And then he started turning blue. And then I just, started pressing on his heart, breathing and doing my best version of CPR that I could do. Thank God we were here. If we were in Tennessee, I am like an hour away from a hospital. Here, it's right down the street. It's like 5-10 minutes. So I'm still working on him. I get my phone, I get it on speaker, and they come. I had like 20 people in this kitchen working on him. Nothing changed, and I'm like, oh my gosh, thank God. Thank you, God. One of the EMTs looked at me because I'm over here whipping holy water on him, and he knew that I was Catholic. He said, do you want to get a priest? And I'm like, in my mind, I thought, what's the point? He's dead, but I said, yes. And so I said, call this, St. Mary's, blah, blah, blah. And he does, and he gets the voicemail. And so the priest answers, calls back, and he's going to come. He's on his way. And everybody's gone. My husband's still laying on the floor because the coroners have to pick him up. And I'm like, unbelievable. Like I'm just looking at him dead on my floor. And the priest comes in and I'm on the phone with my mom in the other family room. And he starts praying on him and he starts doing all these things. And so I hang up with my mom and I ask the priest, Father DeTomo, he's great. And I said, what are you doing? Like, what are you praying? And he's like, I'm giving him last rites and the apostolic pardon. And I'm like, but he's dead. And he goes, we don't know when the soul leaves the body. I had no idea about this. And then a week and a half later, I listened to Father Chris Alar. You know who he is?
I love him.
Right?
Oh.
Father Chris Alar, he's doing one of his Saturday lives, and I'm listening, and he's like, we can perform the last rites and the apostolic pardon up to 3 hours after a person is dead.
I did not know this at all.
Right? Me neither. So that's why I'm telling everybody, any Catholic, all the time, because I was basically, what if I didn't have the priest come? Then he wouldn't have had that beautiful experience.
Thank God for that EMT.
Yeah, right? It was God talking through him. So one more thing.
He did it. He did it. I mean, your husband made it.
So I'm sitting here. There's a couple of other things. So everyone's gone. My husband's now off the floor. It's night. I hung up the phone with someone and I'm like, what am I going to do? So I don't know why. I walk over to my husband's phone. I pick it up. I'm like, well, maybe a contractor texted him or something. It's Saturday. The contractors aren't working. But I went to his texts. I flipped it up and I'm at the top. Now he saved me as Kendra, not Kendra wife, not Kendra ICE in case of emergency, not Kendra Von Esh, just Kendra. And I look at it and I hear in my head his voice. And he says, Kendra. And then my eyes float up and it's 11:11 on his phone. And then my phone that I'm not touching lights up and it's 11:11. And I just felt this amazing peace. And so I'm on Relevant Radio on the morning air show Mondays. And I tell them what happened. And so John, who's the host in the morning, tells Drew Mariani. And so on Monday, I'm having a private mass for my husband and my dad. My dad passed away on Christmas. 33 days after my dad passed, my husband passed. Like, that number doesn't escape me.
No.
So I'm having this private mass with the priest that was here. And at the same time, Drew Mariani is talking and having people pray for me and Jeff. And my phone lit up. I mean, I had people like, oh my gosh, because I didn't tell anybody. I didn't go on my YouTube channel. I wasn't doing my podcast. I was like in shock. And then, I mean, think about Drew Mariani. There's millions of people listening. Millions of people are praying for him. And then at 7:00, Father Rocky prays for me and Jeff on the Rosary Live. And more people are praying. And so that very next day, when I was in prayer, after all of this happened, I asked God, is he saved? Not is he in heaven? And I talked to a lot of purgatory people that said so he didn't just visit me, he visited a friend of mine through their dog and my mom the night that he died. So he's either in the highest levels of purgatory where he's able to visit people or he's in, All I did was ask, is he saved? And this beautiful whoosh came over me. It's like this feeling that my body gets when I ask God questions. And so I have to live my faith, and know that he's in a better place than here. And now I guess God knew that this was all going to happen. And so God was putting in my prayer this retreat home. And I mentioned it to my husband once. I said, if I build a retreat home here, I don't have to travel. And he's like, yeah, that's not going to happen. So no, he did not practice. And my initial heart was, he is in hell. And we have to understand that prayers are powerful, past, present, and future. I had a stack of masses from people for him, like 15-year perpetual and incredible. I mean, that's the best thing a Catholic can do for a Catholic and a non-Catholic is have masses said for people who have passed, but also for people who are alive. And so I just look at this faith and I'm like, wow, what an awesome faith we have. What amazing opportunities. And like, who knew that you could do all that 3 hours before or after a person dies? Sacraments are so beautiful.
Oh, Kendra, your story is terrifying, number one. For those of us who are married, my husband and I have been married 34 years. It'd be terrifying to see him on the floor.
Yeah.
But How beautiful that the Lord was working through that EMT to get Father there, and that last rites can be given up to 3 hours because we don't know when that soul leaves the body. I mean, I have my own just absolute beautiful stories about death that are just, it's just amazing.
Isn't it?
Mary says that this life is like the wave of a hand. That she said that's how short it is. That's why we all here need to be very intentional about our faith. And also those of us who have been steeped in the faith from birth, we have an absolute duty to find the Kendras earlier than 42 to really speak up and evangelize and get people into the faith so that they know. So beautiful though that you found God. It's never too late. You're never too old. It's just so beautiful that you found him and you are funny. And I think that's what people need. They need a little levity when it comes to all this and addictions and all of that, marijuana, alcohol, food, pornography, masturbation. It's part of our world down here on earth. It's just part of our world, but we just need to know that we can be detached from it all.
Yeah. And with God, he truly can heal everything.
He can heal everything.
And he has been amazing.
This has been amazing. And I love Relevant Radio, and the Drew Mariani staff, Maggie, who's the producer there, has reached out to me. So I'm hoping to have an interview with him very soon about my book, Delay and Pray. Love Relevant Radio. Just fabulous. And my daughter lives in Chicago. So when I go to visit her, I will give you a text and see if you're around. That would be just absolutely amazing. So, So if people want to find you, I can just put the website on the show notes. Is that good?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And then they can click up on the social media at the top for, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn.
Yeah, I saw it all. It's like she's everywhere, everyone. So just go to her websites. Plus it's really, really beautiful. Well, thank you so much for your testimony and your deep love of the Catholic Church. And I love that you found the courage to switch careers. I did that as well and just go full on Catholic. I mean, you know what? It's never too late, everyone. It's never too late to start spiritually fasting, to find your faith, to get back to Mass, and just to plumb the depths of this amazing, beautiful Catholic faith that we have. Even Divine Mercy Sunday. Do you know that it was last year that I realized the effects of Divine Mercy Sunday when you actually say the Divine Mercy Chaplet starting on Good Friday and all the way through Divine Mercy Sunday, and then go to Mass, go to confession, and that all sins are wiped clean and you start over like baptism, like it's a fresh baptism. And all of it, I just consecrated myself to the Blessed Virgin Mary as well. And so I think it all came from that. So yes, consecrating yourself to Jesus through the Virgin Mary is really important too. I mean, I just love how you're also very practical. It's awesome. And so everyone just get out there and find your faith. And we are fearfully and wonderfully made, as you say on your website, and it's never too late. We will keep you in our prayers and fasting, especially with the loss of your husband. And I'll pray for all of you and hopefully meet you in person one day.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So thanks.
So wonderful, Beth. Thank you. Keep doing what you're doing, because many
Kendra.
people have addictions to food. And when they bring God into that, I mean, amazing things can happen. So you keep doing
it's amazing.
What you're doing.
It's absolutely amazing. Thank you.
Well,
I hope everyone enjoyed this podcast with Kendra. Please share it with your friends if it was inspiring to you, so others will hear the great message of Delay and Pray, and we can build this spiritual fasting movement together. Have a great week, my friends. Keep praying and fasting, and I will talk to you next week. May God bless you and keep you always. If you are interested in learning more about spiritual fasting and permanent weight loss, then come join my course, Delay and Pray, a guided course for weight loss through spiritual fasting. You won't go through it alone either. I will be there to coach you every step of the way. This is a group coaching program where you are part of an amazing community of like-minded Catholics who have the same goal as you, to bring about miracles while losing that weight permanently through spiritual fasting. Your purchase includes an online course detailing what spiritual fasting is, how to do it, and all the tools you need to get you the results you're longing for. Head over to my website right now at thecatholicfastingcoach.com and get the details on how to join. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, and LinkedIn to always get the latest daily information to help you keep fasting, my friends. Can't wait to see you in there. May God bless you and keep you always.